Hey guys, welcome. It's Vesna here. I am super pumped about today's episode and I cannot wait to share it with you. I don't know about you guys, but with my kitchen, space is a hot commodity. So I'm always trying to think of ways that I can repurpose things or add more space. So in today's video, I'm creating more space by creating a noodle board that doubles as a tray. So not only is it a stovetop cover to give you more counter space, it also doubles as a tray if you need it. You have company and you need a tray to carry things around, or even just for decoration. So let's get started. So what I'm using here is actually a piece of wood that we were going to use as a door in our basement when we were doing the built-ins. It's a piece of plywood, but like a better quality plywood. You know how you can buy different grades of plywood? This is kind of the better quality of plywood. And I bought it last year. It's still a little bit warped, like it's not super straight. So it didn't function as a door, but it'll be perfect for this tray. And it does have some holes from the screws, so I'm going to be filling those in with just some wood filler, and then I'm going to be painting it out. So you could make this out of any old scrap piece of wood that you have, just as long as, even if it's warped a little bit, meaning like it's a little bit crooked, it's still okay, but if it's too crooked, it might not work. Or you could do bits of scrap pieces of wood and put them all together. And I will link the video above where I did that as well. I have several noodle boards that I've made. I love them. So normally when I paint furniture or anything kind of bigger, I tend to use chalk paint. Today I decided that I was going to use just a cheap Home Depot paint that I had left from an IKEA hack. So it's the cheapest one they had. It's the Gliden, and it's a flat paint in the Deep Arctic Night. And it held up pretty well. I did need 2 coats of it, but it did a really good job. So I had it in a smaller jar because I was using it for something else. So that's what I'm going to be using here, and I'll apply 2 coats just using my Sloan brush. Since I will be applying wax on top of this, a dark antiquing wax, I'm not too worried about having it be perfectly smooth because I do want that kind of rougher look to it. Now, if you wanted it to be perfectly smooth, I suggest that you use a roller and make sure that you sand before, you apply the first coat of paint, and sand after. So I always sand between coats. I always sand it down just slightly, just because it will give it a little bit of a smoother finish. But if you want like a really super smooth finish, make sure you're using a roller. And guys, I don't worry too much about what kind of sandpaper. You don't want it to be too rough, but it's whatever I have on hand. Most of the stuff I have on hand is pretty fine, so keep that in mind. Use a finer grit sandpaper and do it lightly. Don't go nuts, so you don't take off too much paint. For the size of this noodle board or tray, whichever you want to call it, I'm using more pieces of this plywood, and they were just cut down into thinner pieces. Now, what you're going to need to do is then cut a hole out for your handle. Now, my husband did all of this because he's lovely, and what he did was he drilled 2 holes to like as wide as he wanted this to be, and then he used a jigsaw to make this handle. If you don't have someone to cut this for you, or you cannot cut this yourself, then you can always just attach to the side some sort of handles. I just didn't want the handle sticking out on the sides, but it would look fine. And the noodle board itself is 30 inches wide and 20 inches deep. The sides on the sides are 20 inches deep, and then because I put the one board on the inside, that one is 28 inches because you have to account for the thickness of each side. You'll kind of see what I mean because I'm making it into a deeper tray. So I have 4 sides of these thinner boards that I'm using. So 2 of them are 20 inches and 2 of them are 28 inches. So that way they kind of fit inside and we do a nice rectangle. So what I'm doing for this part here is I'm actually sanding down the handle on the inside. So as you can see, a little bit of the wood came off, and that's okay. Like I said, I'm into the rustic look, and I'm just using this little rotary tool that I got off of Amazon. Once I have this as smooth as I want it, I go ahead and I give it 2 coats of the blue paint as well before I put the board together. So once everything was nice and dry, we pre-drilled a whole bunch of boards into the big base of the noodle board. And we did 5 holes on one side and 4 holes on the other side. And this is to make sure that the tray is nice and sturdy if I am carrying stuff around. And then we just drilled from the bottom into the handles, into each hole, and just using wood screws, nothing too spectacular. And that's it for putting it together. Then I wanted to, because it is a double-sided board, I wanted to cover up the screws, and I thought, well, maybe I'd paint them. And then I decided, you know what, I have this burlap ribbon that has adhesive on the back, and I think it'll break up the blueness of this board if I just put that on there. And I really like the way it looked. I contemplated maybe putting some painter's sticks on and then staining them brown. You could do that as well. I just worried about not cutting them evenly or having it be a little bit too bumpy, so I decided this was the best option, and it'll give it a little bit of that smoothness so it doesn't scratch your table if you are carrying it as a tray. For the final touch of this project, I'm going to be adding the Sloan wax in black, and this will give it that kind of darker, aged look a little bit. And whenever you're applying the wax, you just do random patterns. You don't need to go in a straight line or anything like that. Just do random patterns applied, and then you just want to do a good job buffing it. And to buff it, I always use a cotton rag, just any old scrap rag. Usually it's an old t-shirt that I've cut up, and you just wipe it off and keep on, adding and wiping off until you get the look that you're looking for. So whether it's a little bit darker, a little bit less dark, and you just keep on doing this until you get that look. You could add the clear wax at the bottom and then add the dark wax, and that way if you thought you put too much black wax on, you can always wipe it off if you have that clear wax on the bottom, and you wipe it off with clear wax. So you put clear wax, black wax, and then if you put too much, you put clear wax over top and it'll wipe off. So that's just a little trick. And then here I just do some final touches because I noticed that there was a little bit of paint that kind of went clumpy. And then before you finish everything, you want to add a layer of Mod Podge to both sides if you think you're going to be using it as a stovetop cover and a tray. And you add the Mod Podge just to give it another layer of protection. But if you've used the clear wax, that'll be your layer of protection. I just didn't, so I'm adding Mod Podge. So here's the completed piece. I'm really happy with the way it turned out. I do have a gas stove, so it does have that little lip to be raised a bit, and it covers everything. And you can grab the handles if you needed to take it off. It is a little bit heavier, but that's okay. That makes it a very sturdy tray. And I think it just turned out gorgeous. What do you guys think? And I've just started out with some fruit, and that's usually what I have on top of there is a bit of fruit. But then if we have company or anything, I can even serve things on top, like some apps or whatever. Not that we've had company because we've been in lockdown, but anyway. And then if you wanted to use it as a tray, you could use it as a tray on top of the stove. Now, I wouldn't use it on mine because I do have the knobs for the gas, so I just don't like that on there. But you could use it on a table like this, or if you have an electric or even a glass top stove, you could put it on because you've put that little protection on there at the bottom, so you could use it this way. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Like I said, come back next week where I'm starting my fall DIY, so it's going to be a series of fall DIYs up until September. So I really hope you come back and check that out. If you have not had a chance to subscribe to this page and you liked what you see, make sure you subscribe. I will be linking my other noodle boards that I've created, including a Dollar Tree one. So if it would interest you, I'll have it linked at the end here. And I will also have it in the description below. Thank you so much. And I'll have the materials listed as well in case you guys want to check it out. So thank you so much. Have a great day and stay safe, everyone. So for today's episode, I will be creating another noodle board. Nope. So in today's episode, have you ever, no. So I'm wondering, have you guys ever had problems? a little bit different, so I hope you stick around to... So make sure you stick around to see how I created this one.